Benchmark, the voice of business. Presented by LMD.
On this edition of Benchmark, the Managing Director of Sri Lanka Tourism Promotions Bureau, Charmarie Maelge, is in the hot seat today to give us her take on the tourism industry as it recovers from the downturn following the Easter Sunday attacks. Up next, LMD columnist Hasita Premratna assesses the performance of the stock market and provides an insight into market sentiment and investor confidence. And bringing the program to a close, Charmarie Maelge, the Secretary General and CEO of the National Chamber of Exporters of Sri Lanka, discusses the challenges confronting the export sector. That's the lineup on Benchmark.
Hello and welcome to Benchmark. I'm Savitri Rodrigo. The once thriving tourism industry was left reeling after 421. And as the industry looks at what has happened, deals with the setbacks and looks to regain and rebuild, we've invited to join Benchmark today Charmarie Maelge, the Managing Director of the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau. Charmarie, welcome to the program. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you, Savitri.
As you look at the tourism industry, what is your assessment of it right now?
When I look at the tourism sector, right now I see huge potential. It has the potential to be the number one industry for Sri Lanka. This is against the current scenario that we are facing. We still can make it to the top in terms of foreign exchange earning to the country.
So tourist arrivals, as expected, declined in May to 37,802, but has increased considerably and significantly to 115,701 in July, according to the figures of the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority. How do you view the industry's recovery following 421?
Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau can be happy about the recovery. It is greater than what we expected it to be. In May we had a 70% dip, and in June we started the recovery, the growth of tourist arrivals in June, and in July we have recovered 50% of our arrivals against 2018. So that's a very good position to be in.
Still on the subject of arrivals, the chairman, Dr. Kishu Gomes, recently said that we would be expecting 1.9 million tourists or 2 million by the end of the year, and that is the projected figure. And also to increase tourist traffic, the BIA has reduced ground handling charges, aviation fuel charges, the embarkation levy, as well as giving visa-free or an exemption of visas to 48 countries. Looking at all this, what measures do you think should be taken to ensure that the industry achieves its projected arrivals target for this year?
Two things mainly. First, I must tell you, government has done everything possible and they have lost no time in, number one, safeguarding the industry in Sri Lanka, domestic industry, local industry, by giving them financial packages, moratorium on loans. That was the first step they did. And in addition, the government also approved a marketing campaign for rapid revival or damage control and revival of the tourism industry. Then to operate a joint marketing fund was approved. In addition to these new things you just mentioned about the visa fee waiver for 48 countries, which is going to be a very big boost to drive tourist arrivals. In addition to all these new things that have happened, Tourism Promotions Bureau also is carrying on with all our activities, normal activities. We have had no cutbacks on our general activities. We have strengthened it on a daily basis. Every day there's a journalist in Sri Lanka, a blogger in Sri Lanka. In the market outside we have got consumer promotions happening, trade promotions happening. So everybody is working around the clock to bounce back, get the tourism to come to the level it was before. So in terms of what measures we have done, let me put it this way. Key thing is to build image and build confidence that Sri Lanka is, we had this best accolade in the history of tourism to say Sri Lanka is the #1 tourist destination to visit, declared by Lonely Planet. And very recently, even after 21/4, we had Travel and Leisure in US consumer voting, large number of consumers voting. We are the #1 destination island in the world. So that is beating all the other more reputed islands. We were a novice into that competition. Different markets are responding differently to Sri Lanka. Industry is confident because industry tour operators selling Sri Lanka, they were seeing a very high growth for Sri Lanka. Pre-21/4, some tour operators were accounting for more than 30% of growth compared to some of the stagnant competitors we have. The consumers, everybody loves Sri Lanka. So there's a genuine interest for tourists to come back to Sri Lanka, especially at this time, to help us in the recovery.
So you're sounding very optimistic. Do you think the private sector is as optimistic as you?
I think they need to be more optimistic than the government because there are signs and they feel the pulse of the market than we do. They are constantly in touch with their tour operator agents overseas and they see how active the markets are in selling Sri Lanka right at the moment. Private sector, I must tell you, clarify something. See, Sri Lanka has products, room selling at homestays, maybe $30 a night, and then we also have rooms selling at $1,000 a night. So that's what's unique about Sri Lanka. It caters to a wide variety of tourist needs and also segments. Our focus right at the moment is to drive the numbers. So we are not focusing on the yield as yet. Once the numbers are established and the tourism plant is occupied to a certain level, then we will do focused promotions to drive the yield. But that will be a little, not an immediate tactical plan, but it will be a medium-term plan for us.
Lonely Planet reaffirmed Sri Lanka as the best place to visit in 2019, and Travel and Leisure after 4/21 called us the best island in the world. Now these are significant accolades for Sri Lanka. How can Sri Lanka capitalize on these recent recognitions?
Number one, I urge everybody in Sri Lanka to own it. See, I don't think everybody feels it and owns it. Rest of the world think that we are the #1, but we need to feel that and own it. And rest of the world still reaffirms we are the #1. So we also need to capitalize on that. And 2019 ends in December. Till December, we are the #1 destination in the world. So this is a very, very rare accolade. It doesn't come easy. It is voted by very prominent travel and tourism experts. And Travel and Leisure Best Island is recently. So I think we need to capitalize on these accolades and go to the entire world, declare ourselves as the #1 destination to visit.
So we'll be continuing this discussion, Charmarie, after a short commercial break. So after the commercial break, on the other side, Charmarie expands on effective destination marketing strategies and also which segments of tourists Sri Lanka should be attracting. Stay tuned.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
$8,500 done. 1,500 go. Hoorah!
What on earth are you doing?
I'm making money.
You're crazy.
Crazy for money. 10,000 steps done. Who the man? I do it every single day. Show me the money.
So you run 10,000 steps every day, huh? You must be fit.
Some days I do 20,000. Hoorah!
Welcome back. You're with Benchmark. We are discussing the tourism sector with the Managing Director of the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau, Charmarie Maelge. Charmarie, which segments of tourists do you think Sri Lanka should attract?
The unique nature of Sri Lanka tourism is it doesn't cater to one type of tourist. It doesn't cater to one category of tourists or one segment of tourists. For an example, beach, sun, sea, sand, that was the product that we were selling earlier, is still a strong product. In addition to that, we've got 7 other product branches like culture, adventure, then we call it island escapes because we are an island destination, we want to project that, Ayurveda, tea, cricket. Then looking at the tourists, we cater to the young, the middle-aged, the old. So age also different. In terms of generating markets, we have a huge mix. Number 1 generator is India, then Europe, the 3 countries, Germany, UK and France generate 20% of tourists. Top 10 markets generate 70% of arrivals to Sri Lanka. Then going back to what segments. So Sri Lanka is everything for everybody. That's why Savitri, we have come up with a brand called So Sri Lanka. So Sri Lanka does not explain what Sri Lanka is. It doesn't restrict the destination to one particular experience. It's many experiences for everybody.
Given your marketing expertise, Charmarie, I know that Sri Lanka will be participating in travel fairs in the UK, in China, in Poland, in Italy and in Japan. And given the new age tourists that is now evolving, in your view, will traditional promotional activities like trade fairs, like road shows and outdoor promotions actually be effective?
Right now, we are in the knowledge economy. So the most effective and result-driven marketing is achieved through digital marketing. And we've had digital marketing campaigns happening in UK, Germany, France, India and China from 2018 up until recently. In terms of traditional marketing schemes like trade fairs, yes, we do need to be present because that's where we need the trade and we need to have a stronger presence felt. Then traditionally consumer awareness we need to do in terms of getting traditional media like press in travel magazines, newspapers, all of that we need to get. So it has to be a balance. We cannot say just because digital marketing is delivering quite a lot, so it has to be spread across all the activities.
So there was a seminar recently organized by JICA and the Ministry of Tourism saying that there is an opportunity to rebuild tourism to be better than ever before. Looking at this, in which areas should the government and the private sector focus on to rebuild a more resilient industry?
I'll answer your question in 2 segments. In terms of resilience to incidents, and it could be something happening in our generating markets, I think the destinations have, including Sri Lanka, has become more resilient, and within a shorter period of time the destinations can rebound. Savitri, Sri Lanka is already a crowded island. So right now we are focusing on number of tourists. Actually, what we need to be doing is to focus on the value. So it should be volume versus value. We have got an excellent strategic plan done for 2017-2020. So that is 2020 is ending next year. So we need to do another strategic plan to cover these aspects. Where do we want to be in say 2025? Already in 2019 we were tipped to be the number one revenue generator for Sri Lanka, beating foreign remittances from workers and the garment industry. Let's put it this way. When you look at the tourism industry, it is operated by the private sector. So if you look at the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotions Bureau, our governing body, majority are the private sector, represented by the Hotels Association and Sri Lanka Inbound Tour Operators Association. So we all need to put our heads together and come out with where we want to drive the industry in next 5 years' time.
Traditionally, the winter season has been a high volume, high growth period for Sri Lanka. In your opinion, how will the impending elections scheduled for December or sometime around there impact the industry's recovery?
Okay, you talked about the winter season. Traditionally, yes, we've been based on winter sun. Europeans coming to Sri Lanka. Now we are not only having Europeans, so we really can't be talking of a winter season because we are a all year round destination. Generally tourists don't like to come during rainy season, so when we have rains, monsoons in west, the east, northeast is dry. When we have rains in northeast, west coast is dry, so we are all year round destination. And in addition to that, climate change has already arrived in Sri Lanka, so we never know when it's going to rain. So the upcoming election, we are aware that it is going to be in December. So by that time, tourists would have already booked their visits to come to Sri Lanka. What if there's an impact at all? It will be on future bookings, depending on how we manage the situation locally. So if everything is smoothly done, I don't think there'll be an impact on tourism at all.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an interesting conversation on this evolving tourism industry and its recovery. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Savitri.
So we've been chatting with Charmarie Maelge, the Managing Director of the Sri Lanka Tourism Promotion Bureau, on the tourism industry, how it is regaining its earlier status as one of the best destinations in the world. On the other side, Anushan Silvaraja is there with more.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal, LMD Podcast, now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
$8,500 done. 1,500 go. Hoorah!
What on earth are you doing?
I'm making money.
You're crazy.
Crazy for money. $10,000 steps done. Who the man? I do it every single day. Show me the money.
So you run 10,000 steps every day, huh? You must be fit.
Some days I do 20,000. Hoorah!
Welcome back to the show. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Now for a closer look at the latest on the bourse. Joining me is market analyst and LMD columnist Hasida Premratna. Welcome back to the show, Hasida. Now it's been a while since we last spoke. What's new with the bourse? What's happening?
Yeah, I think we saw a very interesting July where the all share price index almost appreciated 10.5%, and that's about 600 points in total after a fairly dull first 6 months in 2019, with the momentum picking up, with the activity levels picking up in July, where we saw the average daily turnover more than doubling compared to the previous 6 months average. So I think the momentum that we picked up in July kind of slowed down again in August. We saw things flattening, and still the market hangs around 5,900 point level. So it has not gone down, neither it has gone up. So it's a kind of stood there. But we saw clearly the retail investors coming into the market and making their position felt. Of course, the foreigners also continued to be active, where the foreign participation stood in the range of about 35% during the month of July, and it has stayed somewhere at the same levels in August as well. Of course, the local factors have contributed positively, where the political situation in the country, and also we've seen that the presidential candidates have been now more or less nominated by both main parties, and with that signal being more certain, investors have taken a more positive look at the overall activity levels. In the meantime, we saw the interest rates coming down locally by almost 200 basis points, and that made the investors to think, okay, why do we keep money and FDs, fixed deposits, at low rate? We'd rather put it into alternate investments, and obviously stock market was one of the main alternate investments, so the retailers started to put money in there. Parallel to that, the EPF and the local government funds started to come into the market, and they started to gradually show that they are going to support the bottom, which means that the investors were more confident to step in and get into a buying mode. So that probably is why we saw a sudden momentum shift in the market in the month of July. But of course, if you look at August, we are still hanging somewhere there.
Now you focused on the local conditions, Hasida. What about the global conditions? How are they impacting our capital raising activities?
Yeah, the global markets are extremely volatile. As you know, the conditions are becoming worse day by day. On one side, we saw US President Donald Trump coming out and imposing a 10% tariff on all the balance imports, almost amounted about $300 billion of imports from China. The additional tariff was imposed. With that, we saw the global markets starting to react, including some of the emerging markets like India, like Vietnam, where the Chinese currency started to depreciate, and with that depreciation, all the emerging market currencies showed a trend of depreciation, including the Sri Lankan rupee, which looked to be quite stable and static, but it did depreciate quite a bit during the last few weeks with that. On top of that, what we also saw is that the US Fed rates, which were on an upward trend for a couple of years, started to slowly settle down. On top of that, we saw the Fed giving clear signals that the upward momentum in the interest rates that was seen for some time in the last couple of years will now come to a standstill. And in fact, the 25 basis point Fed rate reduction did make a significant impact to the market conditions as well. And Fed not only said cut the rates by 25 basis points, but also they gave an indication that there will be a further reduction during the year, which definitely signaled that the interest rate trend is changing in the global markets, and that also had an impact on the Sri Lankan market as well. While we were also having a reduction in our interest rates, they have a further impact on it as well. So all in all, when you look at the global conditions, we've seen change in fundamentals in the US and the European conditions, where the Brexit still is in a standstill. Most of the European economies are struggling in terms of the consumption, and this certainly has given us more or less a very volatile global market that influence our foreign investors as well as our local economic conditions.
Now, taking all of this into consideration, then how do you think Sri Lanka is performing when compared to our regional competitors?
So what we've seen in the last couple of months with the sudden 10% appreciation in the bourse, we've been seen as one of the best performing markets in the last couple of months, because most of the global markets have actually been coming down, and we've seen clearly the US markets as well as some of the other developed markets have been struggling, and we've seen a pickup in the Sri Lankan market in the last 2 months, and that has definitely been a positive sign. Obviously the regional markets have not yet recorded such a gain, but having said that, if you look at year on year, our market is still during 2019 somewhat flat or slightly above the starting point, and there are quite a few of the regional markets still standing above the year-to-date index position compared to where it was in January 2019. So I would think that the current PE ratios in the market, which stands at below 10 times, is certainly still an attractive point compared to most of the regional markets. Corporate earnings have been struggling in the current quarter, especially because of the Easter bombings and the resultant impact that we saw in the economy and in the country. But I'm sure that the trend is reversing fast, and we are seeing positive momentum in the overall consumption, the tourist arrivals, as well as on construction front, so that economy is turning from that sudden standstill that we experienced during the month of April, May, and somewhat in June. So this turn should definitely make the investors more confident, and also the country's fundamentals turning more positive. And as a result, compared to the global markets, I think we should stand stronger.
Thank you very much for joining us, Hasita.
Thank you.
That was market analyst and LMD columnist Hasita Premratna. We'll be right back after a short commercial break. Stay tuned.
LMD is making waves, airwaves. The next big thing from Sri Lanka's pioneering business journal. LMD podcast now online. Listen to our articles on the go at www.lmd.lk. Select, play, listen. It's that simple.
Hello and welcome back to Benchmark. I'm Anushan Selvaraja. Now we're going to take a closer look at the latest on the export sector, and joining me is the Secretary General and CEO of the National Chamber of Exporters of Sri Lanka, Charmarie Maelge. Welcome to the show, Mr. Maelge. Now let's start off. How is our export sector faring right now?
We see that some of the sectors have done well. The apparel sector has done well during the initial stages. And of course, we all know the recent attacks in April that had a setback, but exporters are resilient, so they have come out with their contingency plans, and they are facing the challenges. We have a target of around 20 billion set by the government, so exporters are positive. Well, exporters have to face certain hurdles, so reaching the target of 20 billion may not be an easy target. But they are resilient, as I said, and they are positive, and with proper backing, support by the chambers as well as from the government level, I think they will be able to meet the targets.
So what are the challenges that you see the export sector facing?
Well, I think the exporters, now if you take our chamber, we are representing around 850 exporters, member exporters. And as a respectable chamber, what we have told is that we don't want any incentives from the government. We understand that the government has to pay heavy loan installments and such. So what we are asking is for very steady and strong policies without having any changes in between. We saw recently there was some changes with regards to policies related to the Ports Authority. Similarly, with regards to certain taxes, there were changes. So these are certain things that are upsetting the export development programs. Because exporters, they deal with their customers on a long-term basis. So for them to keep on changing their pricing structure and their method of doing business, now these are all going against the Sri Lankan exporters. Now, not forgetting, in our region, there are many countries, exporters that can offer the same product at a cheaper price. So I think Sri Lanka has an image. Most of our exporters are now qualifying with high standards, and they are practicing good governance, ethical practices. So these are giving them that winning edge. But still, when there are policies that are changing very frequently, that is not good for any business.
Now, do you see enough being done in terms of a product offering? Are we making enough new products to export out there?
Well, that has always been an issue because the Sri Lankan export basket has to be increased. We still see the same old products being exported. Very little value addition has been happening. Recently, we had a workshop where we got professors like Ajit Alvis to come and talk about value addition and how important that is. But then again, when you talk about value addition, you got to do a lot of research and development. So exporters, as I mentioned, they have cash flow issues, so they don't have enough. They don't have huge amounts of money where they can put in towards research and development. So these are some of the issues we are facing. And also in Sri Lanka, there is no Exim bank, that is Export-Import Bank. So the exporter has to go to a normal bank where he has to provide all collateral and pay the prevailing rates. So these are some of the issues Sri Lankan exporters are facing. But if you look at another country, if you look at India, they have something called Exim Bank where direct support is given to exporters even on R&D. And of course in Sri Lanka we had this triple tax deduction, but that is not fully active. Then they reduce it to double tax, and that also is connected with some clause. You have to show the result of your R&D expenditure during a year. So these are not practical, and we as a chamber, we have been speaking to officials on this. We are working with the stakeholders, and hopefully we are, we want the Exim Bank to come on board so that exporters can benefit.
Now, this whole thing about value addition, Mr. Maelge, do you see enough interest out there for people who are willing to go into value additions?
Well, right now, I think out of many members that I have spoken to, only few of them are looking at value addition. Rather, they are, comfortable with exporting whatever they have. But this should come in as a program, a national program where there is a lot of support and encouragement given towards something like value addition. So we are willing to work with the stakeholders and promote this kind of idea. So it's going to take some time, but there are companies who are engaged in value addition. They are even working with universities in Sri Lanka, and so there is some interest happening, but not to that extent in comparative with our other competitors in the region.
So in your opinion then, what more needs to be done to take our export sector to the next level?
Well, I think one of the emerging sectors now is the ICT BPO sector. They are projecting it to be a $5 billion industry. So we need a lot of programs involved to uplift that sector. And another issue that we are facing right now is shortage of skilled labor. Now this has to be addressed. Now we have an institute where we promote educational courses on export related subjects. We are even willing to take that next step, go to school level, speak to the A-level students, talk to them about thinking about exports as a career. So we are just a chamber. I think this should come at a national level, and maybe export should be included as a subject in the O-level or A-level curriculum. So it has to start from there, and we have to increase the number of exporters in Sri Lanka and also the number of value-added products into our basket. Another issue I want to mention is about the national single window. Now this is something the exporters are crying for a long time. Up to now that has not been done. So there are areas like this that are hampering the growth plan. So I think if these are put in place, exporters will definitely boost.
Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Maelge.
You're welcome.
That was the Secretary General and the CEO of the National Chamber of Exporters of Sri Lanka. Thank you for watching Benchmark, and we hope to see you again next time.